Okay, yeah, let's get this. Let's play a little music, huh? What do you say? Yeah, that'd be good. All right, and now. Ooh. All right, so what we're playing? A little bit of lo-fi, a little bit of chill, lo-fi chill hip hop beat. You know what I'm saying? Let's see here. Okay, and I'll be able to give the credits in the description below. But this is nice. Yeah. So we're gonna let this play a little bit while I talk with you. First and foremost, the reason for this video is to kind of shed some light on some things, some things that really just never, ever, really, ever get talked about. Why? Well, me personally, I feel that it's really important that we become aware of ourselves. We've, the times we're facing, right? The times we're facing should I say, pretty difficult, right? Right now we're facing inflation. Just got through some real bad COVID mess, right? Some of us still in it, I guess. The situation in Ukraine. Now talks of China beefing up their military due to Japan and the U.S. That's our country. Doing some NATO stuff. Is Japan part of NATO? No. Well, hold on. Let's see here. Japan is... Hold on. This is how they say it. Japan is not a member of NATO, but a global partner of the organization. Let's just say Japan is a NATO member. However, I'm sure there's a lot of club privileges that they may or may not get to partake in. Who knows what that means? But, the times are crazy right now. Who knows what's going to happen? Brazil going crazy. They're following us. They're like, hey, did you see what they did in the U.S.? Yeah, sure did. Let's do the same thing. All right. Where the ex-Brazil president's staying, right? Florida. Hey. Anyway, moving on. But what I feel is absolutely necessary is that we take the moment, we breathe a little bit. For the sake of the world, we breathe a little bit. But most importantly, we really take some time to learn ourselves. And really what I mean by that is we need to explore how it is we tick. We need to figure out what drives us, what makes us go, what makes us stop, what makes us say yes, what makes us say no. We got to figure that out. And why that's important is because, well, has anybody ever heard of PR firms? You know what PR firms are? PR stands for public relations. Okay, let's do a little bit of history about public relations. What is public relations? Public relations is basically how it is the public will relate to whatever it is that you're basically trying to pitch, whatever it is you're trying to sell. Whether it be a product or an idea, you have to figure it out. And why that's important is because, well, these are the consumers of the product, or they are the consumers of the idea, right? So if you don't appeal to them and to what they like, which generally falls along the line of our internal biases, our subconscious biases, then you're not going to win them over. And that means you're not going to sell your product, you're not going to make any money, and you're not going to sell the idea. And usually, to sell a product, you have to sell an idea. It usually goes hand in hand, right? Some people say no, advertising is different than propaganda. No, it's the same thing. It really is. They just use a different term because one is, it was really coined against, Nazi Germany, and something you need to know, Hitler read a particular book called Public Relations by a man named Edward Bernays, who they call the father of public relations. Now, who was Edward Bernays? We all know who Hitler is. Who was Edward Bernays? Edward Bernays is the nephew, or was, I believe he's definitely passed away, was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. I'm sure you've heard that name before. Sigmund Freud. If you haven't, Sigmund Freud was really big into psychology. I believe personal psychology as an individual, but also social psychology, which deals with groups and group behavior, also as well as individual behavior as it reacts to or absorbs or deflects or whatever it is, information, whatever it is, because of the group behavior. All right, so you also have a group understanding, but then you have an individual understanding, but then you also have an individual understanding within that group understanding. Hope that makes sense. So Edward Bernays, let's give you an example of something he is responsible for. So cigarettes. Okay, now he's relatively innocent person, meaning he, meant no harm by this. Kind of like the person who created pop-up ads. That person regretted it very soon, and they were coined for saying that. Edward Bernays, let's just say tobacco company. I can't remember which one, but you can look this up. The tobacco company approached him after he had shown his understanding and put his practices to use with the wartime propaganda. So, and this was World War I propaganda. So they approached him and they said, "Hey, we need to increase our cigarette sales. How can we increase our cigarette sales?" Well, something Edward Bernays noticed is that no women really were smoking. Why? Because societal understanding, or as it went for social norms, is that it was frowned upon for women to smoke. And we can all believe that. It was frowned upon for women to speak in public, so whatever. But this was a good one. Ladies, you probably should have took it. However, tobacco back then I don't think was poisoning people as much as it is now. So anyway, but still. So Edward Bernays noticed this, and he realized what the issue was. The issue, he could have put signs up, went to write laws saying, hey, write in the law that women are allowed to smoke, and you can't punish a woman for smoking, because men would, they wouldn't let their wives or their girlfriends or their daughters or whoever they may be, they wouldn't let them smoke. And it was really seen as a big social, powerful thing to do back then, to have a cigarette in your mouth. And the way they advertised it, you were cool as shit smoking a cigarette, right? You remember the camel with a cigarette in his mouth? So anyway, so Edward Bernays realized this, and he's like, okay, well, I'm not going to take that approach because that doesn't work. Why would I? Because I understand how people tick. And the problem wasn't women. The problem was the men, or were the men. Yeah, whatever, right? So this is what he did. The women were having their suffrage movements here and there. And they were going to have a rally soon. And they were going to march a parade through the streets. So Edward Bernays came up with this brilliant idea. He said, look, this is what we're going to do. He approached some of these leaders, who then approached all the women. He said, give every woman that you can see a cigarette. And tell them, practice a signal or whatever it was. Tell them passcode or whatever it is. Or a signal. I think it was a signal, obviously. And he said, during the parade, at that particular time, or maybe it was at a particular time, maybe that's when they scheduled, all the women everywhere pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and began smoking it all at once. And what did that do? That put a shock to the social norms. It really did. And where, if one woman did it, she'd get probably beat down, or they'd look at her, frown upon her, and be like, right? But all of them did it all at once. And it shocked the psyche. It really ripped through those biases. They had them. Cognitive dissonance was definitely there. Men were probably freaking out, and some men probably privately beat their women. But from there on out, women began smoking. And that doubled the sales for that particular tobacco company. How did he do that? Because he knows how the mind works. He knows how we are. He knows what the human condition is, and he knows how to appeal to it and to make it work in his favor. Now again, this rather innocent. Now he didn't let his wife smoke, I heard, which that's good. I'm sure he was nice, but hopefully he wasn't like a woman hater or something. But you get what I'm saying. So that's Edward Bernays. Hitler read his book, Public Relations, which he wrote, and used that to better corral his people, his flock, his sheep into doing his bidding. And you should know this, ordinary people were more responsible for the removal and capture of Jewish people than were the SS, the Nazis of regular forces, and Hitler combined. And that doesn't mean that Hitler's not at fault. Definitely at fault here. But he couldn't have done it if the people would have saw through the bullshit. If the people would have fought their biases, that wouldn't have happened. If people would have learned themselves, learned how they tick, and they were very angry after World War I because of how they were being treated on the world stage. Hitler used that anger. He read public relations. He figured out how he could get the people moving the way he wants them to move, believing what he wants them to believe. And voila, now your neighbor of 20 years is turning on you, sending you to concentration camps, burning down your business, throwing rocks through your windows, making you wear the thing. Now, of course, some people did. Some people hid the Jewish people. Those people, oh my God, they were saints. You know, they did everything that they could, but they were outnumbered. And it wasn't because they were outnumbered by the Nazi soldiers, or of course, there's only one Hitler. It was because they were outnumbered by their fellow peers, by their fellow everyday common people, because those people did not learn themselves enough to know that Hitler was driving off of their fear, off of their feelings, off of their biases to get what he wanted, blindsiding them and using them at his will. He made all of Germany his puppet for the most part. Okay? And you be a fool to believe that doesn't happen here. Simple advertising for like Doritos and cereals and cars and whatever else. Lawyers. Now that's legal. That was illegal before. You want to know why? Because anyway, whatever. Different conversation. They use the same tactics in public relations to get you to buy what they want you to buy. Same thing for ideas. Politicians use the same tactics through PR firms, public relations firms. If you look up, public relations firms are the most money-making industry ever that doesn't deal with like big stuff like oil and space exploration, you know, the electric grid and natural gas and railroads and all that, and airports, all that stuff. Look it up. And if you want to know whether or not you can really trust somebody or a company or a politician, look at who they're associated with. Who is their choice of law firm? How much money do they spend on PR firms? And I said law firms. Law firms are basically like PR firms. They appeal to the courts, you know, and they appeal to us too. If you're a lawyer, you say something, oh, you're an expert, so you must be right. You know what I'm saying? That's Nazi Germany stuff. And we're falling for it. Look at what happened with COVID. I'm not going to share any like beliefs or yes, no, and this and all that stuff. It doesn't matter. If you did not recognize how embarrassing it was of how people were behaving, blaming each other, pointing the finger, turning on their neighbors, like ready to just go at it. I was accused of killing babies in Texas. I've never been in Texas because I didn't get vaccinated. I wasn't in a position I need to be vaccinated. I have my own business. I worked from home. You know, yes, when I went to stores, I masked up. I took that stuff very seriously. But I didn't need to get vaccinated. I have no pre-existing conditions. I'm only 34. I'm not overweight. So come on. But you want to get at me. You want to skip all that stuff because you were scared, because you were fearful, because someone drove into you, knowing how you work, how you tick, and they got what they wanted. Well, who got what they wanted, Jared? Who got what they wanted during COVID? Pfizer. And every other company that is mad rich now. Go and look. You can very easily type in, I'm just telling you, just type in the stock. Just say Pfizer stock. Trace it through COVID, before COVID and after. Other companies, the same thing. And now look at the war in Ukraine. All these corporations are raising their prices, claiming, you know, oh, we can't get supply in because of what's going on in Ukraine. That might be somewhat true, maybe. But then they turn around and brag about record-breaking profits, and we just gobble it up like, oh, it's because of Putin. It's because of Putin. They literally just bragged in front of you about record-breaking profits, but you still want to blame inflation on the war on Ukraine. I mean, I'm just saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to know yourself. You have to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And the only way you can check yourself is if you learn yourself, right? You have to learn yourself. You have to learn how you tick. Like the people in Germany, they had to learn how they tick, but they didn't have the time. They were easily corralled. They were quickly corralled. They didn't have the time. They don't have the know-how. And now with all this technology and stuff, we have internet and everything. Yes, some things are being censored, but you don't need to look at articles necessarily. Just learn new, simple psychology. And then you won't be so easily persuaded. You'll be able to ask questions, right? So on. In my opinion, and like I said, from what I've been seeing from around the world, what I see is just that we're giving up everything to other people, and they're yanking our chains one way or another. May not be completely, maybe entirely, but we won't know either way because we have allowed our biases to make our decisions for us, and our subconscious biases. You know, we trust this person because they're a Democrat. They're professionals. They're experts. Oh, no, Russia definitely did it. Why? Because of Russia. Like, stop and think for a minute. And again, this is not about changing anybody's mind or anything. I'm just trying to use some examples. I will use this Ukraine situation as an example here in about a couple minutes. I want to show you something. What I mean. So these PR firms, they know how you tick. They know how you work. And whether it's simple advertising from products or more serious advertising of ideas, they're going to get it into your head. So you have to learn yourself. You have to learn how you tick. You have to learn your biases. You have to check your emotional states. If you find yourself getting frustrated very easily on Facebook, you need to take a pause. And by frustrated, I mean like your first comment and you're already labeling people a certain way. Somebody told me one time I was going to send Putin a Valentine's. I'm like, in what logical world do you see that? But that they're so tore up in their heads, they're so caught up in their own subconscious and their biases, and the cognitive dissonance is making them just react. So you have to learn. So I want to give you an example of something. I want you to think about something. If someone, let's say someone came on to national TV and they said so-and-so stole into someone's house, but they didn't stab anybody. You're like, okay. And then you move on, and a bunch of other people pick up the story, and they say the same thing. You know, so-and-so who broke into but didn't stab anybody is on the run, or is, you know, whatever it is, right? Well, what I'm saying is, like, eventually you're going to be wondering why they keep saying the person who broke in but didn't stab anybody. Like, you get what I'm saying? So they're kind of repeating something over and over, like, but who said anything about anybody stabbing anybody? Like, why would you lead with that? Like, that makes me think that they did stab somebody, right? Right? It makes you think that too, right? Well, if they go on repeating that or whatever, like what I'm saying, they're doing that on purpose. And I want to show you. It has so they're basically the PR side of it is that they're just basically repeating themselves, and they're going to say it enough, and they want to make sure they say it quickly so that becomes your thought, right? And what that is called the illusory truth effect, right? When a fact tastes good, so it's something we want to hear, it's already been packaged for our biases. And when a fact tastes good and is repeated enough, we tend to believe it. And they say fact is like fact. It's true. We tend to believe it, no matter how false it may be, because they repeat it over and over. And that's called the illusory truth effect. And anytime you realize that, or you sense that, it gives you cause for pause, right? Because it should. So really what I want to do is just, I want to show you some stuff here. Okay. So if you're still with me, thank you so much. We're going on 20 minutes now. Take a pause if you need to, go get something to drink, but I just want you to chill. And if you're having a hard time, just breathe. Okay. Because the quicker you can learn how to get over this and be able to recognize cognitive dissonance and what it feels like, the quicker then you'll be able to overcome it. And you know you won't be there's no way that you can be bamboozled, at least not easily, right? Bamboozled means tricked, confused, into believing something that isn't true just because it's been packaged in a way to make you believe it. And like we just talked about right here, the illusory effect, the illusory truth effect, excuse me. I didn't even know what it was called, but I knew, like, that doesn't sound right. Like, just like with that story, like, why would you keep coming out and saying the person broke in but they didn't stab anybody? Oh, this person broke in but they didn't stab anybody. It's like you running up to your mom like, Mom, Jimmy, you know, broke your vase, but I didn't push him. I didn't push him into it. That's probably a better one. Do what now? Yeah, Jimmy broke your vase, but I didn't push him into it. As a parent, you're immediately going to believe that, yeah, you definitely pushed him into it. You know? Now, unless, you know, he and other people in the house are trying to say something, you're just like, I'm just trying to deny this. But, you know, the kid's coming to you with the initial, but I didn't push him into it. Okay, okay. Well, really all you needed to say is that, if you wanted to, is that Jimmy broke your vase. Jimmy broke your vase, that's it. Then let Jimmy say he pushed me, then say you didn't. But the reason you want to go ahead and say, but I didn't push him into it, is because you want that to be the perceived story. You know, they say first impressions are very important. That's not just true with meeting somebody, that's also true with meeting ideas. Okay? The very first one you hear is generally going to be the one you stick with. Why? Because we don't really stop and think, unless it sounds so ridiculous, or it already goes against certain biases that we already feel, so it makes it easier for us not to believe it, right? But what the importance is picking up on that tactic, realizing what is being happening. So generally, anytime that tactic is used, that means there's a lie being told. Something's not right. Okay, and I'm sure you would agree, right? You're probably like, yeah, you definitely pushed him into it. Right, and that guy definitely stabbed somebody. Like, we weren't even questioning what happened. Like, we weren't even questioning it. Like, it was the first time it happened. The first time you reported on it, you're telling us, like, so it's like something happened, right? Whether it be with anything, right? So I told you I want to talk about this Ukraine situation, and this is what I want to say. I want you to recognize something here. I'm gonna let you do it on your own. Okay, I'm not going to say anything until the end. Okay, so this was on February 24th, 2022. If you know that date, you know that date. This is from the White House and the White House briefing. It is titled, Remarks by President Biden on Russia's Unprovoked and Unjustified Attack on Ukraine. Okay, CNN, same day, February 24th, 2022. Headline reads, Biden condemns Russia's unprovoked and unjustified attack on Ukraine. Okay. Even Fox News, which usually would just go against anything Democratic, so they're ready to make claims, but they chose very carefully. They read, U.S. politicians on both sides of the aisles late Wednesday condemned Russia's unprovoked attack of Ukraine after news broke that Vladimir Putin had declared a special military option. You get what I'm saying. Okay? I have a few more. All right, this is from... I have no idea where it's from. France. So this is France. So this is U.S. ally. Unprovoked and unjustified. World reacts to attack on Ukraine. Okay. Reuters. Same day. Well, actually, February 23rd, but different time. Britain says wholly unprovoked attack on Ukraine starting. Kiev airport cancels flights. Okay. This is CBN News. This is actually some Christian-based news organization. I'm going to make this a little bigger so I can read. Russia attacks Ukraine from multiple directions in unprovoked invasion. A full-scale war in Europe has begun. Okay. This is NBC News. Again, same day, February 24th. And it reads, So the headline is a little different. The headline says Russia-Ukraine conflict updates. Oh, so they're just changing the headline every time. So actually the real headline on February 24th, 2022, NATO calls Russian attack unjustified and unprovoked, deploys extra forces. Okay. This is some paper. It's definitely American. It's called Your News. Again, February 24th, 2022. U.S. lawmakers, world leaders condemn Russia's unprovoked and unjustified attack of Ukraine. Okay. And of course, the statement by President Joe was, I condemn this unprovoked and unjustified attack by Russian military. So maybe we can let that sit for a minute. And just think about what I read to you. There's probably one word that you'll remember more than anything. If you got it, yes, unprovoked. So just like those examples I gave earlier, when they run up to you, the kid, and says, Jimmy broke your vase, but I didn't push him into it. But I was nowhere near him. But I had nothing to do with it. But it was unprovoked. You're going to be like, wait, hold on. Nobody's questioning really the provocation here. Nobody's questioning whether or not it was provoked. I mean, Putin might be saying some stuff, but no attack was really made. So, you know, people all over the place have been like, yeah, Putin's not going to attack. Oh, Putin will attack. If Putin attacks, it's going to be crazy. Putin's not going to attack. Putin's crazy. And of course, Putin's like, yeah, I will attack. Well, I'm not going to attack. And it was so stupid. People, you fell for it. You know, I'd be I'm sorry. I mean, it's not a funny situation at all. But if I'm Putin and I move my military to the border of Ukraine and I say I'm not going to attack, and then I attack and you act surprised, I'm kind of going to laugh because it's like, that's very stupid of you. Like, why else would I waste all that gas and resources? I mean, come on. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, moving on. The word that you heard most was unprovoked. Unprovoked. NATO calls Russian attack unjustified and unprovoked. At the same time that the White House briefing, same words, unjustified and unprovoked. This is on the day of. Nobody had time to say, well, it wasn't provoked, or, you know, No. None of these conspiracy theorists got a chance to say this. But something I want you to understand is, let's go back to, what was that? What was the definition of that again? I don't even remember the definition. That's how new it is to me. The illusory truth effect. When a fact tastes good, which it does, it's definitely packaged. We like to hear that it's unprovoked because, I mean, it's Russia. Boo, Russia, you know. Tastes good and is repeated enough. We tend to believe it, no matter how false it may be. And it goes on to understanding the illusory truth effect can keep us from being bamboozled. So not only do we have the illusory truth effect in play, but we also have first impression in play. The first story you heard, it's the story they know you're going to believe. And even throughout February, March, May, June, they keep calling it the unprovoked invasion. They won't just call it the invasion. That's so stupid. It's like when we stormed Normandy Beach. It was an invasion, but we didn't call it an invasion. We call it storming the beach, or we call it D-Day, you know, to make it sound better. But that's fine. It's whatever. But we don't call it the friendly invasion of Normandy. No, do we? No, we don't. So why do we have to keep saying the unprovoked invasion? Because they want you to believe something, and that should be cause for suspicion. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And that's part of the PR tactics, part of propaganda. Okay, it really is. And that's reason enough, I'm just saying, that's reason enough to pause for a minute and be like, wait a minute. And they probably got you. And don't feel bad. These PR firms, they make mad money. They know what they're doing. It's psychology. But the great thing about it is you don't have to learn a lot. Really, you don't. It's really simple. It's really simple. It took me about 7 to 8 years to learn this. Well, it took me 34 years to learn this. You know, because my experiences, perfect timing, perfect place, everything that has been a part of my life has led up to this moment. But I seized upon the opportunity. I started recognizing things with what it is I could understand. And the only way I was going to learn The only way I was ever going to learn how to understand anything was if I set aside my biases. And really, for me, because of the life I lived, I really didn't get a chance to form any biases. Like, at least not politically. Now, religion wasn't a thing for me. So, like I said, my circumstances were different. My circumstances made me lucky. I feel lucky to know some of this stuff and to catch this stuff. But I want to share it with you. Some people say, somebody has said, and I sometimes find myself believing this too, that you really have to people have to go through hardships to find their way through the eye of the needle. Of course, that's the saying of, like, to fully understand. And sometimes I believe that. And I know that's kind of been my case. I didn't have to, I just did. That was been my whole childhood. Okay? But I don't really firmly believe that. I think some of you, some of us, we're just so traumatized and so programmed that it would take trauma to make us change. But for the most of us, no. We can learn this. We can learn ourselves. And because of it, we won't be so easily bamboozled. And since we won't be so easily bamboozled, we won't do what we did with COVID.